We have a habit in modern politics of treating internet culture like it's just background noise. We look at memes, shit posts, and campaign trail absurdities as a side effect. A joke that's happening in the margins while the serious adults argue about policy. But if you've been paying attention the last 20 years of elections, you already know the truth. The jokes don't stay in the margins or the background. The jokes themselves have become a strategy. Today, memes are being used as tools of political campaigns. They're being used to undermine the ability of traditional mainstream media to create narratives and different stories on politicians, while also creating cults of personality around them for a very, very cheap price. If you want to understand how we've gotten here and how memes have become a part of elections, we have to look at different eras that have led us here. First, we have the disruptors and the satirists like Vermin Supreme, and how the kind of performing shows how much of a joke some of this election system is. We'll then move into the mainstream weaponization with, say, Donald Trump, and kind of intentionally saying absurd comments to garner more media coverage as well as social media coverage and rally more people around him and getting more recognition, as if he needed that. And finally, we'll get into the modern part with kind of the algorithmic weaponization. We have how a new generation of extremely online, we'll call them politicians, weaponizing different memes and different trends to be able to get their face out there more.
Why are you wearing a boot on your head? I'm wearing a boot on my head because it symbolizes all that is great with America.
And to understand how we've gotten here, we need to start with a man that wears a boot on his head. For 30 years, Vermin Supreme has been the undisputed king of satirizing American politics. He runs for president almost every cycle. He promises a free pony, mandatory toothbrushing laws, and using zombies for renewable energy. Most people dismiss him as a crazy guy looking for attention, but Vermin Supreme wasn't just a troll, he was an intentional parody of the campaigning system. He calls himself a friendly fascist and explicitly told voters to their face, I'm a politician and I will lie to you.
I have no intention of keeping any promise that I made. Why are you wearing?
Now, why does this matter? Well, it does because Vermin Supreme discovered a fundamental vulnerability in our modern politics. Absurdity destroys some of the authority that these parties wield. Let's look at the 2012 New Hampshire Democratic primaries. Randall Terry, a very hardline, controversial, anti abortion activist, is trying to run a very serious, aggressive campaign. And during a debate forum, Vermin Supreme walks up and dumps a load of glitter on Terry's head, and claiming he was turning him gay.
One more thing. Jesus told me to make Terry gay.
Look at Terry's reaction. What can he possibly do in that moment? If he gets angry and screams, he looks like he's unhinged. If he tries to debate policy, well, covered in glitter, to a man wearing a boot on his head, he validates the joke. So Terry was completely stripped of all authority that he had in 3 seconds without a single policy argument being made. Vermin Supreme stayed on the fringe, but he laid down kind of the operational blueprint for our political warfare with memes. Number one, attention is a finite resource. If you're weirder and louder than the guy in the suit, you control what the camera looks at. And two, decorum, or kind of civility is what some people call it, is a weakness. A traditional candidate playing the rules of polite debate and polite politics is completely defenseless against someone who refuses to play that game at all. And for decades, political scientists thought satire like Vermin Supreme was kind of just a safety valve, a way to kind of laugh at the system. But in 2016, someone looked at that blueprint and realized, what if you didn't just mock power? What if you used it to actually take power and control?
Safe to say it was the Donald Trump show tonight, for better or for worse. At the first Republican debate held in Cleveland, it was, at times, easy to forget that there were 9 other candidates on the stage.
Enter the 2016 Republican primary. Before Donald Trump, political campaigns spent tens of millions of dollars on focus-tested ads, white papers, very carefully thought-out political platforms, and very, very, very conservative, get it, careful messaging. Trump threw that entire playbook in the trash and replaced it with reductive, meme-ready caricatures of his opponents.
Yes. Sir.
Let's see if he answers it.
I
will. Don't worry about it, Mark.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, little Marco, I will.
Taking the money, but you know, you look at a guy like Jeb Bush, he's taking 100 low energy. He's taking 120 extremely low. Oh, I shouldn't say this, debating right now.
Think about what these nicknames really are. They aren't the typical traditional political attack. They're usually repeatable memes. They're sticky to the person that he calls that. They're very simple usually, and they're infinitely repeatable. Jeb Bush had a $100 million super PAC behind him, and Trump basically vaporized his political career by calling him low energy. And it was the Vermin Supreme glitter bomb, basically, but scaled up to the top of the Republican primary process. And what did the traditional media do? Well, they fell straight into the exact same trap.
Preparing for a stare down this week with Russian President Vladimir Putin. But on Twitter, he's wrestling with us. Look at this video from his Twitter account this morning. This is a WWE WrestleMania video from years ago when Trump.
If you didn't know, cable news is a business. They run on ad revenue and ratings. And because Trump's rhetoric was so outrageous, networks like CNN, MSNBC, and Fox aired empty podiums for an hour, just waiting for him to come out and speak at rallies. He weaponized the media's profit incentive against their own political decorum, as we talked about before. Outrage was free distribution that could increase ad rates and increase ratings. But the real structural shift wasn't really what was happening on the news. It was happening on social media sites like Reddit, 4chan, and Twitter.
But I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
2016 is what I will call the year that political campaigning became more open source. An entire ecosystem of decentralized, chronically online users began manufacturing thousands of memes a day. They didn't treat Trump like the typical conservative politician. They treated him like a Molotov cocktail thrown into an establishment that they truly hated. And here's the most important weapon that came from that. Irony. They used irony to shield themselves. If an online mob pushed a savage attack or conspiracy theory or anything like that and it landed, it was treated as a serious political truth. But if they got called out by the traditional media for it, the immediate defense was, dude, it was just a joke. It's just a meme. Why is the media crying about, say, a cartoon frog? Well, there's a dual nature of this. And being serious when you're winning and a joke when you're cornered kind of made the meme rhetoric impossible for an establishment media or establishment politician to fight against it. If you're trying to fact check a shitpost, you're kind of losing at that point because you're recognizing it and acknowledging that it's out there. This brings us to the present. Whereas in 2016, memes were used to support a candidate, we now have memes that are candidates. And this may sound weird, but we're at a point in time where the candidates themselves are native to these subcultures that were making memes around 2016, and they're intentionally provocative and being propped up by these. They aren't hiring consultants to make them for them, they're actually making them themselves. Let's look at gubernatorial candidate James Fishback.
Well, what's going to make me successful in Florida is meeting with voters where Byron Donalds won't meet them. DEI stands for didn't earn it. If he doesn't want to go out and meet with voters like I am, whether they're in Mariana or Miami, Pahokee or Pensacola.
Fishback is a relatively new political candidate, and he's running against a heavyweight name with tons of money and tons of name recognition, U.S. Congressman Byron Donalds. And as we would expect in a traditional race, a candidate running against one that has far more funding and far higher name recognition would be completely dead in the water. They lose. Well, it seems like Fishback figured this out pretty quickly. So how do you manufacture instant name recognition in modern politics? Well, you trigger social media algorithms with rage bait content, attacks towards your opponent, and really anything you can do to be controversial. So let's look specifically at how Fishback campaigns on social media. And it's not just Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or YouTube. He's basically everywhere you can see him, any possible place. So instead of traditional policy critiques, he attacks his opponent by using hyper-specific internet-based meme nicknames. That may sound like a lot, but you'll see. He calls Byron Donalds AIPAC Shakur, a mashup of the pro-Israel lobbying group and Tupac Shakur. He calls him DEI Donalds. He calls him Byron Donalds, specifically like that. So let's see what else he does.
But we got a new name for Byron since he's such a big fan of the flock surveillance state here in Florida. We call him Waka Flocka.
I got a lot of flack for saying that Byron Donalds was a slave.
So when Fishback was asked by university students about what his campaign strategy was against a lot tougher of an opponent, his literal response was, "We mog Byron. That's it. If we do that, we win." He also doesn't talk about school lunch reform. He calls public school cafeteria goy slop. He points out in a campaign video about improving transportation, then tweets that he wants to make the trains run on time, and then explicitly replies to his own post with an old video of Donald Trump defending a Mussolini quote, just to make sure that no one missed the fact that it's a fascist double entendre. Now, if you showed that to a traditional political analyst, their brain would probably short circuit. They would ask, why would a serious candidate say this? Isn't that political suicide? Well, no. The thing is times have changed. Traditional political analysts don't understand the media economy that we live in. The whole point is the blowback and controversy, which drives more algorithmic pushing because you have interactions. When a candidate uses edgy internet slang or tweets like a Mussolini meme, the media immediately writes outrageous articles. They are outraged. Opponents condemn them. Cable news, traditional media people gasp and they're so appalled. And what happens when they attack you for that? You gain more name recognition. And sometimes you gain more credibility with young, disaffected, extremely chronically online voters who will vote against anything the media says because it's seen as anti-establishment. So anymore, you don't need a $50 million ad budget if your shitpost works and shakes the entire political establishment and ecosystem to the core. That way, everybody talks about you for almost free. So let's take a step back and kind of look at the trajectory of this. We have about 30 years ago with Vermin Supreme kind of on the outside. I don't think he was really trying to win, and if he was, he unfortunately didn't have much success at all. But he was on the outside kind of showing that the decorum was fake. It was dumb. It was something that we just abided by for absolutely no reason. We have 10 years ago where Trump proved that using absurdity when actually trying to win is a successful strategy. He went viral from all of the jokes and stuff about Hillary. She sounds like a dog. She's getting thrown in jail because of his temperament and things like that. So today, when we look at candidates like James Fishback, and there are many other examples as well, they're showing the next generation of politicians won't just use memes as a tool. They may become memes themselves based off of attention seeking and looking for virality. They are looking more at the algorithmic feed that you get from shitposting and rage baiting people and making people laugh or make you think it's funny, as opposed to policy. So that leaves us with the question, what happens with governance? If we are electing people through an attention-based economy where they're looking for likes and shares and views versus actual policy, we're left with whoever is the funniest, the loudest, the most controversial, depending on how they play their cards, and not people that know anything about policy. Because if we're going to be honest, being in government is pretty boring. We have people reading hundreds of pages of bills to make sure that everything in it is cohesive and works for their party. We have people that need to sit on zoning boards. We have people that need to sit on the most boring of things out there. Yet we're rewarding those that are attention seeking and actually just want the likes and the views. And we see a lot of that in Congress today. There are, of course, I'm sure you've seen it, different accounts that literally follow select politicians who go just for gotcha questions. And gotcha questions aren't necessarily memes, but they're going for the virality of it. They're not going to actually get things done. So when you build the political system where the only currency is engagement in views, you eventually settle for leaders that don't know how to perform the actual job. Of course, they know how to perform, they know how to get views, but that's only to increase their popularity and any type of metric that they have that they're grading it from. So memes really didn't destroy politics. It was more how it morphed into getting attention. They more show what we want as a society. We are looking for people that can capture our attention as opposed to people that are putting in good policy and actually working for us. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I want to know what you guys think about something like this. Is the meme to government pipeline really a thing that we are going to keep seeing in the future? I know that some of my feeds on different social media are literally just that. It's James Fishback in his 500 different accounts that he's doing, and it just won't stop. I will say, it commands my attention. I can't even vote for him. I don't live in Florida, but I find it very interesting. So do you think that something like this will continue, where we have literally just shit posting political candidates that are trying to get into office based off of memes alone? And, well, if you actually want to hear other stuff like this in the future, we have a lot of stuff planned on this channel. I plan on doing a lot more based off of AI and things like that, and discussing that. I have a voice cloning video coming up that I really think is interesting, and we'll be going over the law and the legality of doing that. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope to see you back very soon, and I hope you have a very great day. Thanks for watching.